Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a tense and fast developing situation in the Middle East, where Saudi Arabia has issued a sharp warning to Israel over its continued seizure of land in the occupied West Bank. This warning comes at a time when the region is already facing heightened instability, with the war in Gaza continuing and international attention focused on the humanitarian, political, and security consequences. Saudi Arabia, a country that has traditionally played a central role in the Arab and Muslim world, has made it clear that further Israeli expansion in the West Bank could push the situation into explosive territory, with far-reaching consequences for both the region and global stability. The warning highlights how Israel's settlement expansion and land seizures in the West Bank remain one of the most sensitive and volatile issues in the entire conflict. For decades, Palestinians have viewed the West Bank as the core of their future independent state, while Israel has expanded settlements that now house hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens. This issue is not new, but Saudi Arabia's fresh and direct warning suggests that patience is wearing thin across the Arab world, and that the latest developments could ignite unrest far beyond the borders of Israel and Palestine. Saudi Arabia has long been seen as a cautious actor in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It was the driving force behind the Arab Peace Initiative in 2002, which offered Israel normalization with the Arab world in exchange for withdrawal from occupied territories and a just solution for the Palestinians. While in recent years there has been speculation about potential normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, the ongoing land seizures in the West Bank could derail any such progress. For Saudi leaders, public opinion across the Arab and Muslim world remains deeply supportive of the Palestinian cause, and failing to react strongly could damage the kingdom's legitimacy as a regional leader. What makes this warning especially significant is its timing. Israel's actions in the West Bank are happening while Gaza faces intense military strikes, destruction of infrastructure, and a humanitarian crisis. The dual crises make it harder for regional actors to remain silent, as tensions build both on the ground and in diplomatic corridors. Saudi Arabia's statement that these land seizures risk explosive consequences is not simply rhetoric. It reflects a growing fear that if Palestinians see no hope for statehood and no respect for their rights, violence could spiral, not just in Gaza or the West Bank, but across the wider Middle East. This warning also resonates because of Saudi Arabia's growing influence in international diplomacy. Under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom has positioned itself as both a reformer domestically and a power broker internationally. The kingdom's message is aimed not just at Israel, but also at Washington, Brussels, and other global powers that have influence over Israeli policy. Saudi Arabia is signaling that unchecked settlement growth and land confiscations could jeopardize regional stability, undermine prospects for peace, and even derail broader cooperation between Israel and Arab states. The land seizures themselves are seen by Palestinians as an attempt to change realities on the ground before any future peace process could begin. By expanding settlements and confiscating Palestinian land, Israel makes it increasingly difficult to create a contiguous Palestinian state. Critics argue that this is part of a long-term strategy to annex large parts of the West Bank, leaving Palestinians with fragmented enclaves and little sovereignty. Such moves are rejected by international law, yet Israel continues to move forward, citing historical and security claims. Saudi Arabia's strong stance highlights just how dangerous this trajectory could become. In the past, warnings from Arab states have often been dismissed as political posturing, but the current situation is far more delicate. The war in Gaza has already drawn in regional powers, with fears of escalation involving groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and militias in Iraq and Syria. Adding more fuel to the fire in the West Bank risks opening another front of confrontation. For Saudi Arabia, which has been trying to stabilize relations with rivals like Iran, a destabilized West Bank could unravel much of the diplomatic progress achieved in recent years. Saudi Arabia's warning should also be understood in the context of broader Arab and Muslim world sentiment. Across cities from Cairo to Amman and from Istanbul to Jakarta, the Palestinian cause continues to be one of the most unifying issues for millions of people. Any sign that Israel is intensifying its grip on Palestinian land provokes widespread anger. Governments, especially those like Saudi Arabia that are seen as guardians of Islamic holy sites, cannot ignore this public sentiment. If they appear to tolerate Israeli expansion, they risk losing credibility among their own population. The West Bank itself is already under immense strain. Daily clashes between settlers, Palestinians, and Israeli forces have intensified. Palestinians complain of restricted movement, home demolitions, and land confiscations that make daily life nearly impossible. Human rights organizations have repeatedly warned that the conditions in the West Bank are deteriorating, and that new waves of displacement could occur. In such an environment, Saudi Arabia's warning acts as both a political message and a reflection of ground realities that could lead to greater violence if ignored. It's also important to consider the international dimension. The United States has long been Israel's most important ally, but even Washington has occasionally expressed concern about settlement growth. The Biden administration has criticized unilateral moves that undermine peace prospects, yet its words have not been backed by significant pressure. Saudi Arabia's message may be aimed partly at urging the U.S. to step in more forcefully and rein in Israeli actions. The kingdom knows that without external pressure, Israel is unlikely to slow or reverse its settlement policies. Looking at the long-term implications, unchecked land seizures in the West Bank could make a two-state solution nearly impossible. The dream of a Palestinian state alongside Israel has already been fading, and continued expansion will make it a distant memory. Instead, Palestinians could find themselves permanently trapped in enclaves under Israeli control, without sovereignty or real independence. This outcome would likely fuel continuous resistance, uprisings, and instability, ensuring that peace remains out of reach for generations. Saudi Arabia's stark warning is essentially a call to avoid this disastrous future. At the same time, the kingdom is not merely issuing a warning for symbolic purposes. Saudi Arabia has leverage in the region. Its economic influence, religious leadership, and role in global energy markets mean that its words carry weight. If tensions in the West Bank worsen, Riyadh could rally other Arab and Muslim countries to take stronger positions, whether through diplomatic isolation of Israel, economic measures, or stronger support for Palestinian groups. While Saudi Arabia has often preferred quiet diplomacy, the severity of the current crisis may push it toward more visible leadership on the issue. The warning also serves as a reminder of how interconnected the crises of the Middle East are. The conflict in Gaza, the tensions in the West Bank, the rivalry between Iran and Israel, and the shifting alliances in the region are all linked. A spark in one area can set off fires in another. Saudi Arabia is essentially cautioning that if the West Bank continues to be destabilized by land seizures, the whole region could be engulfed in conflict, undoing years of diplomatic efforts to reduce tension. From Israel's perspective, the government argues that settlements are necessary for security and reflect the historical connection of the Jewish people to the land. However, this narrative does little to address Palestinian grievances, nor does it resolve the international community's opposition to unilateral land seizures. For Israel, ignoring Saudi Arabia's warning could come at a cost. While it may not face immediate consequences, it risks alienating potential Arab partners and entrenching itself in a cycle of perpetual conflict. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia's warning over Israeli land seizures in the West Bank is not just another statement in the long history of the conflict. It is a signal that patience is running out, that the stakes are rising, and that the consequences could be explosive if the current path continues. The message is clear. The world cannot afford to ignore the West Bank, even as Gaza dominates headlines. Without addressing the core issues of land, sovereignty, and justice, the cycle of violence will not end. Saudi Arabia has placed the warning on the table. Whether the international community acts on it remains to be seen.